On your mark. Get ready. It's time to go the distance. For sports news and sports review, get ready. It's The Pitch.
Hello everyone and welcome to The Pitch. I'm your host John Fox as always, alongside here with Mitch Sabbatelli and Mike Peps Perrone. First topic of the day, NHL. Pittsburgh in the Stanley Cup Finals beats the Nashville Predators 4-2. Sidney Crosby wins the Conn Smythe Trophy for the second year in a row. Thoughts on this? We'll start with you.
I think it's great. I think you could debate that Malkin being the leading scorer throughout the whole playoffs for the Penguins in general could have been arguably also in the Conn Smythe conversation. But Crosby, once again, just getting it done. I mean, him and Malkin combined for 55 points. Malkin, like I said, scores the most goals in the playoffs. And then you got a rookie stepping up like Jake Guentzel, who gets 13 goals, 8 assists. Huge games, huge goals scored in those games against Nashville. Murray shutting them out in Game 6 and 7 was pretty much the icing on the cake because they had the offense. The key was always, can the defense step up? And Murray stepped up big in those games in 6 and 7. And Kessel also coming in, you know, always being a player that's been criticized for his defense. But I will say, I mean, he stepped up in both sides, I mean, to be honest. And he had 23 points himself. I mean, also, it was a very good collective offensive effort. And then Murray pretty much stepping up in Game 6 and 7 to do back-to-back shutouts on the Predators, that pretty much sealed the deal. I mean, when he steps up in those games, it's over because that offense is unmatched. They didn't allow Nashville to spread the floor at all. They weren't getting many shots off. Pittsburgh just controlled the pace of play, and they just completely took over, and it was a great show to watch on ice.
Yeah, and not for nothing as well, I think the coaching of Mike Sullivan, who recently took over for Dan Bylsma in, I believe, 2015, has really helped out Pittsburgh. And, you know, taking out Marc-Andre Fleury, putting in the inexperienced Matt Murray, and him to shut him out in a closing game there in Game 6 was just huge. And it's made Fleury actually expendable now, and he is a free agent, so they are going to lose Fleury. But I think now with Matt Murray and, of course, that core of obviously the dynamic duo of Malkin and Crosby, like Peps mentioned, the reason why Crosby, I think, got the Conn Smythe is because of his defensive play. I think Crosby, as well as offense, was great defensively as well, and because he is the captain, he is the leader, and he is the face of that franchise. And for them to win back-to-back, I think it's really showing what that franchise is in the whole history of sports here. You know, you can put him right up there with the Giants in recent sports. You know, Crosby, Buster Posey is two of the most underrated sports heroes in this last decade because, you know, I mean, Crosby won in 2009. Now he's won the last 2 years. So he's got a lot of criticism early in his career for only winning that one title and not, you know, catapulting the Penguins to X amount of titles, and he has done that in the last 2 years, and I think that speaks volumes to his character and leadership as a captain. But again, that dynamic duo of Malkin and Crosby, and then filling in with, like Pep said, Jake Guentzel, Chris Kunitz, who had a great playoff performance, as well as Justin Schultz defensively, and the coaching by Mike Sullivan and Phil Kessel will give you another score as well. I think they just overmatched the Predators, who had a really good playoffs and a really good series, but ultimately I feel like they're one or two leaders away from really being setting themselves apart in the Western Conference. But you know, now Pittsburgh, they're right now one of the best sports teams in all of sports as far as franchise go, and they got a good core and ready to go for future years to come.
Very dominant, yeah. I mean, 3 in a row maybe.
I would say so. I think they're the favorite, especially now that Murray's proved himself and has that experience going into. I mean, a lot of times you rely on your goaltender, and that's the one bad thing about Predators. I think they were too goaltender heavy with Pekka Rinne. I mean, going into the year, knowing that your goaltender is your weakness and you can rely on that offense and just have Murray gain more and more experience, I think they're going to have a good year next year and possibly the favorite to win it again.
It gets to a point in time where you can only rely so much on your goaltender. I mean, with Nashville, because that offense is going to eventually just overpower at some point
exactly.
in time. I mean, to a point where it's one player
now,
and then you got all the offensive players of Pittsburgh. I mean, you're better off relying on your offense than relying on your defense when it comes to something like that.
And one more thing I want to move before we move on. I mean, Sidney Crosby, to do all this, he's not even 30 years old yet. He's 29. And I mean, he was so good so early in his career. And now people think, oh yeah, Crosby's got to be getting up there at age 35, 36. He's only 20. He's not even 30 years old yet. So I think the best, I don't know if the best is yet to come, but I'm sure he can stay on this level for another 5 or 6 years, especially.
He's definitely right in his prime right now.
Yep.
So.
All right. Moving on to NBA, which takes up pretty much the rest of the show. The NBA Finals, the Warriors win 4 games to 1. Very easy series against the Cavaliers. Kevin Durant wins the Finals MVP. Thoughts on this, Mitch?
Basketball is the one sport where you can kind of dictate who's going to win the championship at the beginning of the year. Yeah. You can take the roster of Golden State. I don't care how good Greg Popovich is as a coach. I don't care how good LeBron James is as a player. The best team is normally going to win that. And, I mean, just look at the coaching here. Nothing against Steve Kerr, but they can put in a guy like Mike Brown and then replace him with Steve Kerr and go back to Mike Brown. And I'm glad that Steve Kerr is back healthy and ready to go for next year. But it's just basically on roster. It's just starting roster. And everyone knew that from the get-go, that with Kevin Durant, we have probably the best 1-2 of all time. And that's including, Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. These two guys are in their prime of their career, not even 30 years old yet. They both get, 30 points every single game. Steph Curry did a great job taking that back seat and using what he's learned in the last couple of years as the big-time scorer and putting that into his game now to be more of a facilitator and let Kevin Durant do what he does. Kevin Durant won the the NBA Finals MVP for a reason. Just a dominant performance. Some people say that he's already better than LeBron. I don't think so, but I do think we have seen LeBron James know that he is kind of reaching that end of his prime where he's going to need to have more and more guys around him, similar to like with the Spurs when they started getting older with Duncan and Ginobili and Parker. They couldn't do it themselves. LeBron's a little bit better than all of them. However, age is going to eventually creep up to you, and he's going to need a lot more help as this goes on. We're going to talk about that later in a couple more segments here. But the fact that they won 4-1, that gap is a severe gap. Golden State's going to probably be the favorite to win it for the next 2 years. And after that, they might run into some cap space with Klay Thompson and Draymond. But that big three of Draymond, Kevin Durant, and Steph Curry, it's going to be unstoppable.
The thing is, and they were even saying, I was reading something online, that they're going to bring supposedly the whole entire roster back.
Yeah, they have to.
For next year. Everybody. So, that's impressive.
With the exception of Andre, they might lose Andre Iguodala at a free agency.
Yeah.
But
the thing is, it's like, the only reason this went 4-1 was pretty much because, if the Warriors have to miss their shots for Cleveland to have a chance, like their threes, like the only game they won was when the Warriors were really down on their threes. Even the last game, they went at one point, they were 2 for 11 from 3, and that left an opening where the Cavs could close it out in the second. And even then, still, the problem is you have a guy like Kevin Durant to take over the whole floor. He spreads the floor. He can shoot it deep. He can dunk over you. He can play defense, get rebounds on offensive, defensive end. He's such a versatile player that I honestly believe he is overtaken LeBron as the best player in the NBA. Best player in the NBA as of now, after this year, by doing what he did. 30-plus points in every single game in the finals. And then also, I know you said Steph Curry took a back seat, but also him himself, he had big contributions, except for that game 4 where he only had 14 points. But he still averaged 20, 10 assists, and pretty sure he averaged 7 or 8 rebounds in that series. So he almost ended that with a triple-double. The thing is, you can't really blame this on LeBron or Kyrie either. That's the thing. It's like, the problem is when you have Kevin Love scoring under 10 points in a game-clinching game, and he's way off from his shots, and the bench is giving you nothing. LeBron and Kyrie
it's time to trade him at that point.
Yeah, LeBron and Kyrie are the two that can only take you so far, because he's getting in early foul trouble. He's not getting as many rebounds. He's not making his shots like he's supposed to be. So the problem is when that big three is not clicking, they don't even stand a chance.
Yeah.
So the thing is, I think honestly, Durant is the big key factor for that happening. And also big contributions in the last game from Iggy off the bench. And then, even with people getting in foul trouble, they still stepped up. And the problem is way too many weapons for Cleveland to try and bounce back from. They could manufacture points from anywhere on the floor. So, It's just, I mean, Durant scoring 30-plus points. Like I said, he joined Shaq and MJ in a league of their own. He's the sixth person to do it in the finals, 30-plus points, puts him in an elite group. That's why I believe that's a big part of the reason why I think he's now overtaken LeBron. A performance like that, you deserve it. I mean, you deserve to be the MVP of the finals, and you deserve to win much more than just one, which I think he's going to do.
The one thing that we haven't really mentioned here is the fact that I think Cleveland did really need a good center. I think if they'd had Andrew Bogut and healthy Andrew Bogut, which they made that trade at the deadline there to get him, I feel like that would have helped substantially. Tristan Thompson is a really good player, but they want him to be the fourth best player there in like a big four. He's not quite that guy. He's not there yet, at least. He's a defensive-minded player. He's not going to be able to give you. I mean, he gave you 15 points in that last game there. And LeBron James, as much as we said he is the best player, I mean, it's kind of like Space Jam versus the Monstars. So you got all these huge all-stars.
Yeah.
I've never seen a quartet of players like this in my life. I mean, Klay Thompson really is
they need more,
very expendable here. And like Peps said, they're going to go into the next year probably with the same exact team, maybe even get better. They're McCaw, that guy McCaw off the bench is going to improve.
But
They're still going to have
LeBron's
Livingston.
never been part of a super team.
No, he's never been a part. But yeah, they might lose Andre Iguodala, who has helped them a lot in these last two finals. I don't think now it's going to hurt them as much as it would have 2 years ago when they didn't have Kevin Durant. Now it's Durant and Curry's team. I am going to have to disagree with Peps. Kevin Durant, everyone's making this big thing about how he's going to be the best. He's the best player in the league. Right now I have him at 4, and I still have LeBron at number 1. I mean, if you switch spots with LeBron and Durant, LeBron's far and away better defensive player. The only thing he's worse at is shooting, and Durant is a scorer first, whereas LeBron is a facilitator first, which is big as far as a championship goes. And right now I would have to say Russell Westbrook, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron are ahead of Durant, in my opinion. I have him and Curry basically at a level playing field.
Westbrook's pretty much the only player on that team, though, so I mean, that's kind of not really
as far as overall.
If Durant was by himself, he'd probably be doing the same.
Honestly,
thing.
I feel like GMs around the league, if they were going to start a team right now, they would take Kawhi.
You know why? You know why I just think it's so impressive for Durant is the fact that there's 3-4 other essential all-stars on his team, and he's still doing absurdly great numbers.
So Kawhi, Kyrie, and Kevin Love aren't all-stars?
No, I'm not saying they're not, but those aren't the 3 people he had ahead of him. I'm saying Westbrook is completely alone. So, I mean, he was the MVP for the season.
Yeah,
sure, we're talking
Westbrook was better than him the last 2 years, and they played in the same
game.
Yeah, but Durant's got 3 other all-stars around him, and he still puts up 30-plus points every game.
Let me ask you a question right now,
on
Peps.
That team.
You say
who else do the Thunder have except for Russell Westbrook?
No.
Adams.
I mean, maybe, no.
Right, but
it's a joke.
But you're also taking
you put up a triple-double every single game. You're taking like 1 million shots.
Fox, next year, if Golden State had the option between either LeBron James or Kevin Durant, who do you think they would have for 1 year?
For 1 year?
Yep.
They just take Kevin Durant.
They'll take Kevin Durant back because of everybody else that they have around him, too.
Yeah.
Kevin Durant is a better scorer. He's a better shooter. LeBron James is a better passer, better rebounder, better defensive player.
You could argue the
better
defense
getting to the rim.
Durant stepped up huge.
Durant is not better defensive player.
I'm not saying he is, but I'm saying he stepped up big enough to where I think that matters a little bit more into the factor with the scoring overall being a better player.
I think Durant's a better defensive player than LeBron.
I think Durant is a younger, faster player.
He can only cover one position. LeBron can cover 5 positions. And LeBron's just a better physical specimen defensively than Durant. But that's beside the point. Durant did a perfect job of coming into that team and really taking the best team and elevating it to a different level.
All right, moving on. Peps, this question goes to you first. What does Cleveland need to do to close the gap on the Golden State Warriors next year?
Well,
if they want to compete,
it's like the joke we're talking about earlier. Like saying add another superstar. They're going to have to. I mean, whether it comes through a trade with getting rid of Kevin Love and getting somebody else, or whether it comes to possibly, from what I've been hearing, he said Jimmy Butler said he didn't want to go anywhere, but recent talks with Cavs players are saying that Jimmy Butler could come to Cleveland possibly. But I mean, there's been a lot of rumors about all that stuff, but I really think Cleveland, I really believe that their initial thought was they're going to go after a guy like Paul George, and I think a guy like Paul George will fit well into that system because, I mean, he's a good shooter, solid defensively, and he can spread the floor more than, a guy like Kevin Love is limited in the sense of, he can shoot from the outside, but he's inconsistent. I mean, his rebounding is solid, but, you expect more from a superstar like him if he's going to be coming over like that. I think George can make a bigger impact as a third wheel compared to a guy like Kevin Love on that team. I think he'd fit in well with Kyrie Irving and LeBron James.
Yeah, I'm going to say same thing. I think if you took right now the big rumors like Peps said is Jimmy Butler or Paul George going to Cleveland. I think if I'm the GM, which now we're just going to talk about the GM Daniel Griffin just got fired, so now it's basically just the owner of the team, Gilbert, going to be calling the shots, obviously with LeBron's input. I think they're one big player away. Now, everyone says Golden State is 4 compared to their 3, but they can move Kevin Love and get a better player. And now, if they do get a big superstar, they're going to have to move Kevin Love because of the max contracts. You can only have 3 max guys on your team, and it just doesn't work financially if they do keep all 4. The only way it could is if they got like a guy like Carmelo that doesn't really count as another superstar, but if the Knicks are willing to take a big pay cut there, maybe that could work.
Yeah.
Another way could be maybe they could trade Tristan Thompson. But the easiest way is to move Kevin Love. The problem here is any team that's moving Paul George or Jimmy Butler isn't going to necessarily want a guy 30 years old, kind of fading out of his prime, and Kevin Love. So they're going to need a third team here, maybe a team like the Phoenix Suns, move Kevin Love over there and get some younger pieces coming back as well in that 3-team deal. But I think Jimmy Butler, if you took the same team and took out Kevin Love and moved in Jimmy Butler, I don't think that necessarily makes you infinitely better than Golden State. If you take Paul George and have him with Kyrie and LeBron, keep Tristan Thompson, and also get a younger guy, maybe a better rim protector, somebody who can rebound alongside Tristan Thompson at the center position, I think that would be huge. And I think I would have to say that Cleveland would be as good as Golden State if they got a Paul George.
That pretty much transitions into the next topic. There are 3 big names currently on the trade block. It's Paul George, Kristaps Porzingis, and Jimmy Butler. So we'll start with you, Peps. Where do you think? We'll start with Paul George first. Where do you think ultimately he'll end up going?
I believe he's going to go to Cleveland. I really.
What about the Lakers?
He will. I mean, he could go to the Lakers. I mean, he's got a history there. I mean, not at the Lakers, but in California. But yeah. I mean, I don't see why they would want to give up some of their young talent to take Paul George right now when they're not really a championship contender, in my opinion. I think, I really believe now that looking him up a little bit more, the 7'3" Porzingis would be a perfect fit for a team like Cleveland. They kind of need a center like that. So I mean, I wouldn't see why he couldn't possibly go there either. But I mean, the thing is, I could see Jimmy Butler. I would like to see Jimmy Butler in a Celtics uniform personally. To be honest, that would be nice. I mean, it's kind of tough. I really think that money-wise, I feel like Porzingis would be the lesser financial option compared to Butler or George for maybe Cleveland, considering they need a big man like that, and maybe that could solve their problems, and they might possibly be able to keep Kevin Love with him. But I mean, I think that would be a good fit for them, considering they need a big guy. Also, the Celtics would be a good fit for Porzingis, because I really feel like that they need that big rebound guy, because Horford is a big man, but he's not really like the definition of your prototypical big man in my eyes, where he's grabbing like 15-plus boards a game, where he's really going to just take up that space. He's really going to be able to play a better defensively sound game. I just think that Porzingis coming to the Celtics would also make sense. So, I mean, there's a lot of different options. It's tough to predict, but I mean, that's kind of where I lean towards personally, where I just think that it's a matter of money at this point, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to make that prediction. I think the thing with Paul George is if he leaves Indiana, it's very publicized that he wants to go to LA, whether it's the Lakers or the Clippers. He wants to be in LA. That's where he grew up. That's where he wants it. Once he does, he's already said that he's going to leave Indiana after next season, and he's probably going to pursue LA. He's done everything but tell everyone I'm going to LA. He went on Jimmy Kimmel, and they even asked him that question. Oh, what do you think about the Lakers? And he laughed. He did whatever he could to kind of put it aside. Yeah. But in the back of your mind, you knew he wanted to go to LA. Magic Johnson loves Paul George. The one thing with him, though, he doesn't want to move the number 2 pick, and he doesn't want to move Brandon Ingram, and those are obviously the 2 things that Indiana would want. Although maybe you can package it like a future first round, a D'Angelo Russell, a Julius Randle. I think regardless, I think Paul George is either going to stay in Indiana and wait it out, or if he does move, it's going to be going to the Lakers or possibly the Clippers if they could keep Blake Griffin in that uniform. Kristaps Porzingis, I think he's going to stay with the Knicks. If he does move, the problem is with Porzingis, The only reason why Phil Jackson's trying to move him right now is so that they can also try to move Melo. And by moving Melo, he's thinking that if he adds Kristaps Porzingis, a team's more likely to take him on. A team that's able to take him on right now is the Boston Celtics because of all their assets now. They have 10 first-round picks in the next 3 years, and they would be able to facilitate that. I don't know if the Knicks would want to trade it within the division, but Porzingis is either going to stay with the Knicks or he might go to Boston, in my opinion. Jimmy Butler, same thing. I think he's either going to stay with the Bulls, but if he does move, I see him either going to the Celtics or the Cavs. Celtics right now, they can basically trade the number 3 pick for Butler if they want that. I'm very torn. If I had to make the pick, I would probably take Jason Tatum, but I think I would trade the pick and get Jimmy Butler if possible.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think Butler's going to go to Cleveland in some sort of a deal with Kevin Love in a 3-team deal. Porzingis is going to stay with the Knicks, and Paul George is going to be in the Laker uniform next year.
So it's going to be really fun for the rest of the NBA to watch.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll move on for the sake of time to the next topic, the NBA draft, which is currently 2 days away. Big news yesterday, finalized. The Boston Celtics traded their number 1 overall pick to the Philadelphia 76ers for the 3rd pick in this year's draft and a future first-round pick. Not sure, what is it? It's next year, right?
Yeah, so basically the deal is, first of all, this deal is huge for Isaiah Thomas. It basically is showing that Isaiah Thomas is the point guard of the next 5 years here because Markelle Fultz...
Who needs to learn how to play defense.
Yeah, he's the consensus number 1
going
pick.
To stay on the team.
And if they had Fultz, it would have been tough to really have Fultz and Thomas both in that backcourt, especially because Fultz's big knock is his defensive skills. I think the move... I didn't like the move at first. I had my heart set on Fultz. The thing that is making me happy is the fact that Danny Ainge is saying the pick that we were going to take at 1 would have been the same pick we're going to take it here at 3. Now, I don't know if that's a smokescreen just to basically say, oh, maybe Josh Jackson or Jason Tatum is better than Fultz. I think the reason why Philadelphia traded up is because Markelle Fultz is clearly the best. Now, the only reason why we traded down is because we don't have a need at point guard. I think they're ultimately going to take... obviously, either Jackson or Tatum. Tatum's a little bit better offensively, and Jackson's the better player defensively. If I'm starting a team, I'm probably going to take Josh Jackson. He has the more upside and the most room to grow. But for the Celtics, I think Jason Tatum is exactly what we need. We need an outside shooter. We need a guy. He compares to Paul Pierce or Glenn Robinson, which I think would fit really well at the 3 here. Give another couple years for Jaylen Brown to develop, who has a little bit more of a Josh Jackson type trajectory here. But as far as the top 5 goes, I'm going to say that Markelle Fultz goes to number 1 to Philly. Lonzo Ball is going to go to the Lakers. I think we will take Jason Tatum, and the Suns will take Josh Jackson.
Is there any scenario with all these picks, like all these first-round future picks that the Celtics have, is there any scenario where we draft either Tatum or Jackson and we still get a superstar player this year?
Very good question. Very good question. So basically the deal here is...
Because I don't think people definitely don't want to wait like 4 years.
Yeah.
I don't think...
for something that you don't even know
is... These picks symbolizes the fact that Danny Ainge is going to make another big splash like he did 10 years ago when he got Garnett and Ray Allen. Not like to that level. But I mean, I think there's something behind what he's doing because you don't just stockpile 10 first-round picks in the next 3 years to not make a move, especially when you already signed Horford last offseason saying, you know what, this is going to be a big move. That almost transitions into the next even bigger move, which is why I think there's a strong possibility that they still trade this 3rd pick. I mean, come Thursday, I mean, that could be, I'm not sure because with Ainge, you never know. I mean, this could be the year in his mind where it's like, I can grab a Jimmy Butler and trade the 3rd pick. But my top 5 would be the fact of, like you said, I agree with the fact that the Celtics don't want Fultz because they have Isaiah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you don't need another point guard back. You don't need another guard back there to help him. I think it goes Fultz to 76ers. I think he's a good complement to Simmons, and he's going to be a good point guard, help him spread the floor there. I think Ball to the Lakers because down over in L.A., it's a faster-paced game. Ball makes everybody on the floor better. He'll rack up the assists and score some points over there. I also believe that the Celtics will take Jason Tatum. He's a good offensive-minded power forward, and he can spread the floor too, even as a big man. I think the Suns will take De'Aaron Fox, and I believe that the Kings will take Josh Jackson if he's still available if the Suns don't take him.
I don't know. I think the Suns would take Josh Jackson. They've already told him they would if he's there at 4. But that would definitely change if the Celtics got him at 3. But the thing is with the deal here is the Celtics get the 3, and they also get this Lakers pick that was owned by Philly. Now the problem with this Lakers pick is they only get it if it's within picks 2 through 5. So if the Lakers get that ping pong ball, and for some reason it's between 2 or 5, that becomes now the Celtics pick. Now, if that doesn't happen, if it goes number 1 or if it comes in number 6 pick, then we get Sacramento's pick the following year. Now, what's weird is with that is we get that pick, but only if it's not a number 1. So between 2 all the way down to 30, we would get that Sacramento pick. Yeah. So it's a lot of protection there. I kind of don't like the fact that it's a protection. But I think Danny Ainge is going to take that bet that both picks won't be number 1s, and eventually we would get another pick. Now, there's 4 real big assets here for the Celtics. It's their pick last year, Jaylen Brown. Their pick this year, that's right now going to be either Josh Jackson or Jason Tatum, as well as that big protected pick that I was talking about the following year with the Lakers, as well as Brooklyn's pick next year, which is probably going to be, it should be, have the best odds at a number 1, but it's going to be in the top 3. So the Celtics have a lot of assets here. I think they're going to try to answer Fox's initial question, can they do it? Yes, they would have to trade Brooklyn's 2018 pick as well as the Lakers' protected pick next year. But the reason why I don't think that would happen is I think the fact that they have Jaylen Brown and this now Josh Jackson and Jason Tatum, they all play the same position. And everyone also thinks that Gordon Hayward's going to become a Boston Celtic. So there's too many small forwards. So I think either the pick this year or Jaylen Brown's going to have to get traded.
And another thing is, the reason why I don't think we're going to get Josh Jackson is because he refuses to come to Boston for a tryout. So,
and then he has this assault charge, domestic assault.
I really don't think the Celtics are going to even try with him. He's either going to go to the Suns or the Kings.
I think it's going to be Tatum.
I think we're going to get Tatum too. I think it's a better fit, a nice bigger man for the Celtics because I think they're happy, content with what they got with Isaiah and Bradley right now anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Let's just pick up a random free agent, undrafted.
If I had to make a prediction here, I think we do go ahead and make the pick. We get Jason Tatum.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling that the Celtics are going to throw everyone off here, not sign Hayward, and sign Blake Griffin. Okay. All right. Well, that's about all we have for today's episode of The Pitch. Be sure to definitely follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Facebook, the works, Vimeo. And until next time, have a good one, guys.